So we start data cleaning. So here this is a whiteboard, and these are some capital letters K, L, M, N, and here that the users they rewrite the same character 25 times so that we can create a data set of sensory data. So here capital K they repeat 25 times, L, M, and N, and for repetition purpose here we use a marker. This marker is the top of the marker. IMU sensor is there, which is the 9-axis sensor, 3 axis for accelerometer, 3 axis for gyro, 3 axis for compass. So this is the 9-axis accelerometer sensor. So this is the collected data set. So Z is the character. At this date, the data is collected. At this time distance, data is collected. So character, date, their time piston 6 p.m. 37 minutes 01 second, and like this one. These three axes are x-axis, accelerometer x, accelerometer y, accelerometer z, gyro x, gyro y, gyro z, compass x, compass y, compass z, and time series is going on. Here the time series is stopped. That means these samples are sufficient to write one time z character. So here this type of markers the users used. So they write, this is like the connection. So all these data are recorded in a system, and this exercise repeat for capital A to capital Z, small a to small z. So this is the data collection technique. So assume that after this exercise such data is collected. Now the problem comes into the picture, that data cleaning and other things. So once the data is collected, so assume that data is there. Once after the data collection, pre-processing is required. Various reasons are there. Say for example, data cleaning. So data is dirty, data is missing, repeated data, some outliers are there. So such type of problem comes into the picture. So in this machine learning series, we will see this data pre-processing step one by one, and in this part 2 we cover only data cleaning. So data cleaning, that you need to fill the missing values in this data cleaning step. Data cleaning also responsible for remove outliers or identify the outliers, and inconsistency also need to consider in data cleaning. But out of these three, fill the missing value is a very important step in the data cleaning. Now one question comes into the picture, why missing values are there? So there are three main reasons of the missing values. Say for example, this is the sensor, and when you write on the whiteboard, data is collected on the system. Now what's happened that sometimes this system failure, some wire is loose at this position and that one position, that means, or some sensor fault is there. So sensory or the data communication faults is there. So such faults known as the system failure or the system failed. So this is the one main reason of missing data. So up to this one level the data is recorded. After that the users they continuously they are writing here, but the data is not logged in the system because of the system failure. Second reason of the failure is that some discomfort while writing. So say for example, in this picture, if user they write successfully at this up to this one level, but these are the very low bottom lines, and they need to little bit down, and then after they can write. So you can see that here the space is so high, space is low, so low. Why? Because this is the last line and it is very discomfort to write at this position. So such type of is not the system failure, it is the failure because of the line position. So with respect to something, that type of problems are there, and properly not writing, that's where the data missing is there. Third, and the annoying reason is that the volunteers they are not interested to write all these things. So what they will do, they write something and they miss some characters here, or in a one line in place of 5 characters they start writing the 4 characters like this one. So there are 3 major causes of the missing data. One is the system failure, and that means users is doing perfectly, your setup is also correct, but your system goes down. The second one is you have some constraint with the setup or some sort of things. So because of that reason, data is not perfectly right. And third one is that the user is not interested to write data properly. So there are three type of the failures because of that three reasons data missing is there, and because of these three reasons the missing data can be classified into three categories: missing complete at random, missing at random, missing not at random. So missing complete and random, abbreviated as MCAR, and it indicates that the probability of the data point being missed is independent of both observed and unobserved data. So some data that you can say as this data is observed, and other one is the unobserved. Observed data means those they are not down in your system, and unobserved that you are not able to observe that. So there is completely independency. At complete randomly missing system failure, no one knows when it happened, and no one can predict that thing. So in that case, we can say this is the complete at random. So missing data is random and does not depend of any other variables. There is no column relation, there is no row relation in the data set. And it is very easy to handle such type of missing complete at random as compared to these two type of the missing. Now the second one is the missing at random. So here the probability of the data point being missed is dependent on the observation but not on the unobserved data. We try to clip this one with that one. So observed data means your line number. So say for example, if your line is at the bottom line, this is your observation, then data missing probability is very high as compared the data missing probability at this position. So such type of the data missing is missing at random. Why? Because you are not able to observe with the help of the other observed data, but you can observe that things that yes, at bottom lines most of the cases are missing. Why? Because of the observation. So you have a one relation with the observation, but there is no relation with the missing data with the unobserved data. So in other words, we can say missing data is not random, but it is not related to the missing data itself. So some sensory data are missing, so you are not able to correlate with the missing data, but you can observe with the help of the line number. Third one and the last one is missing not at random. Here the probability of the data point is missing is dependent on the unobserved data. So you know that which line you have, because this is the intentionally you have done. In other words, we can say missing data is not random and it is related to the missing data itself. So here the user know that which data I missed, and for intentional purpose they missed this data. So this is not a random, but first two categories are random. And if you use some recovery mechanism for randomness, then missing complete at random and numbers of approaches are working perfectly. Missing at random is little bit complex as compared to missing complete at random, but missing not at random recovery is very tough, even biased and impossible, because intentionally they have done something. So with the help of this example, we can very easily correlate missing completely at random, system fail, missing at random, where you can correlate the missing with the observed data. Observed data means the number of rows, and missing not at random, where intentionally the user is missed some data at this category. Now let me take some example and the Python programming, how to miss the values, how to cover the values, how to correct the values, all these things. So here we have seen this data. So these data files, in the first column that is the which character you have written on the board, at what date, what time, accelerometer values, gyro values, compass value, and last one column is the time series is going on, time series is stop. So we save this file as a data.txt file here. So in this example, what were the remaining of the examples? We always call this file data.txt, and we do all these exercise. So here we copy this data and we paste the data here and we upload this file, this one. So we see that okay, the file is uploaded in this one, data.txt. So this data.txt file is that one that we have seen. You can see that this data.txt file, character, date, time, accelerometer, gyro, compass, and final time series. Now we start work on it for missing and all these exercise. So this is the example that is. So here we use the pandas library for all these, reading the file, working on that one, file working or working on the files and other things, and NumPy for the numeric analysis purpose. So we import these two libraries and we call it as the PD and NP. So we need to read the CSV file, this data.txt file, and here header equals to null. That means the data is start from the line number 1. So we are not saying that okay, initially they have the header and you can guess the second row. No, first row itself is the data. So that's why we have written the header equals to null. Since this file is very big, so it is very tough to visualize. So that's why we consider only up to the 10th number row and column number 2, 3 and 4. So that we can understand that what's going on in this, and we read this file, save as the data frame df. In this data frame we load whatever is the data is there, and this is the values, numeric values. So that's where we call it, and we cut the data frame in this. So here the data frame is only the line number 0 to 10, row number 0 to 10 and column number 2, 3, 4. And here we try to print this slicing of the data and in this. And if you want to print only the first 5 rows, then Python support .head function. So this function gives only the top 5 lines of the data. So we can run it and see that what's happened. Yes. So first they print the 0 to 10 line row number and 2 to 5 columns. So row number 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. So these are the 10 rows are there, and 2, 3, 4 number column is there. So here you can see that, yeah, this is 2, 3 and 4 column is there, and starting from row number 0, row number 1, 2, 3, 4 like this one. So this is up to the 9. Now this function they print the top 5 lines, so they print the top 5 rows in this because we called it the header. So this is the way that how we can print the rows and the columns of the data set, whatever the data set is there. Now in the next example we describe the data and the properties, that means what is the value of the sum, what is the abstraction and other things. So we can see that. So here you can see that up to that one is the same as the previous example. Here we describe the data, so they show the count. So you consider the 10 number of rows, 10 number of rows in the column 2, 10 number of is the column 4, and this is the mean value, this is the standard, minimum, top 25, 50, 75 and maximum value. So this is the description of the data, whatever data you have selected. So this is the way that how we can print the description of the data that you have considered. Now we describe that data more in deeper side, that whatever the description is there. So you can see that here, first we print the data, and then after is a null value is there. So because we want to work on the missing value, so we replace missing value as a null value. So first we check that is any null is there, NN value is there. No, all these values are the perfectly enter in the data set. So therefore they show that in the column number 2 there is no 0 null values, column number 3 also have no null value, and column number 4 has 0 null values. So all these columns are perfectly working, there is no null value. So how we can print the null values and how we can sum that. So this gives the is the null value. If yes, then sum equals to sum plus. So they do all the totals, whatever the null values are there, and they will show here. But here there is no null value, that's why we are not worried about the data missing and other things. Now we try to miss some data. So first we inject that data missing, that means we try to add some missing data. So first we try to understand this program. So initially that is the import the pandas and numpy library, then after read CSV file here and header equals to null, that means first line itself is the data. Then we slice the original data here with the 0 to 10th number row, that means total 10 rows are there, 2, 3, 4, 3 columns are there. So we cut it this CSV file and save it in a DF. So now my DF is 10 rows and 3 columns. Now what we can do, this is a technique of the masking. So we need to create some null value so that we can use the data filling approaches or randomness and other things. So what we try to do, we try to add some null values. So we create a 2D matrix where the number of the rows is equals to the whatever the rows are in the original your data. So they show that okay, you have the 10 rows and this is the number of columns. So here we create an x two-dimension matrix which is called as the mask, and they consider some random values, and the dimension of this x mask or x two-dimension matrix is equals to this one, whatever the df is here. Now assume that x is created. So parallelly we can run it so that we can understand. So this is the cut portion, this is the x that we have created, and if we print this x, this random which is the number of rows is equals to this one, number of columns is also equals to this one. So this is the randomly that we have created. Now mask says that if the value of random, whatever the random values that you have created is greater than 0.8, then we can say this is the true, else it is the false. So here we can see that 0.5 value we randomly create and this value is less than 0.8, that's why this is the false. This 0.91 is greater than, that's why we can say this is the true value. So here we create a mask, that means we create a true and false matrix like this one. Now we this is the print that we print the mask. Now what we are doing, we put this mask on top of the your df, whatever the df is there. So this is the apply the mask on the original data set to create the missing data. So we copy this data as a df mask and apply this mask on this do the null value. So what they have done, so if the value is the false here, assume that this value is the false, this is the true, this is the true, and this is the false, like this one. So you can see that this is the masking and this is your original data that you have got. Once you apply this mask on this original data, so if this is the true, this is the true, and this is the, these values are the true, so wherever the true value is there, they write the NaN. So what we are doing, we initially whatever the data is there, that is the perfect data, we create some null values so that we can use some that means how to fill the null values, how to correct these null values, or that means missing values. So this is your original data, you create a mask like this one, this import this mask on the missing value, that original data, so that now these values are the missing values. You can say these values are the missing values. These values are missed as a randomly. So here you create a mask like this one. This is your original data you have printed, and after this you print the missing values. So this is the final data. They have some missing values that we need to fill, with the some approaches. Now we go to the second. So here now we count the number of nulls, how many number of nulls in each column. So earlier that we have seen that when we try to print the null value, there is no null values, but right now if you see that the program is same as this one, the copy and other things and everything, you print the mask and then you can try to how many number of null values. So in the column number 2 you can check that is the one null value, second null value. So column number 2 has the 2 null values, column number 3 has the 1, 2, 3, 4 null values, and the column number 4 has the 1 null value. So column number 4 is 1. Now you can see that the null values comes into the picture. When the null value comes into the picture, then you need to use the missing value algorithms, whatever the techniques are there. Since we want to use some techniques to fill this null value, so what we can do in that case, we can write, this is my meaningful data that I want to remove this NM with some approaches. So what we can do, we need to save this data in somewhere else. So we use the same Python that write in a CSV file. So here to CSV, that means you can write whatever the after the missing value inject in that. So this is the masking. So after masking you have this result. So we want to write this result in a data file and we call it the data.nn. So once you write this data file here and you run it, so you can see that yes, this is the value, this is, and after some time you can see that there one file is coming here, which is the data.nn. If not, then just refresh it, you can see that yes, the file is already there. Once you click it, you can see that the file has some null value. So say for example, the file has the first null value, then second value is there. So that's why they show only the one value. Here there is no value. Why? Because the null value, this is also null value. That's why they are not showing any value at this position. So this is the way how we can write the resultant df mask into a CSV file in the same directory. So here you can see this is your original file, this is your null value file, only the number of 10 rows and 3 columns are there. Now we start how to fill the these null value. So if we have the null value, that means if we have some missing values, then we have two options in the data pre-processing. One is that you can delete rows or columns. So that is the first. Another one is method is that you can fill these values with the help of some interpolation and imputation methods. So first we say the delete. So deletion is also, there are two ways are the deletion. One is the list wise delete, other one is the pair wise delete. So in the list wise delete, if you say apply the list wise delete, that remove entire elements or items from the list based on certain condition. So say for example here in this picture, that is one value is missing, so you can entire row you can cut it here like this. You are not required. Why? Because this is the list wise delete. Pair wise delete, you delete only the selected values. So we can take some example. So in the list wise delete, these are the some inbuilt functions in the method, inbuilt methods in the Python. So drop NN values, filter out or remove. In our data set that we have the NN value, so we can use the drop NN. Drop NN automatically drop the rows or the column which they have the missing values. So let me copy this program. So we already write this NN based data in a file. This is called the data hyphen NN. So we copy this program and run it here. So we can see that here first we pandas or num file. Then after we open this data hyphen NN, they have the NN values. Then we print this with NN values and count that how many number of NN values are there. Then we drop the number of rows or drop the rows which has the NN value, and once again we save this value as a data frame or missing, and we try to print this one, and after that we see that okay, how many number of rows and columns they have the null value. So this is the original. Then you can see that the first for the 1 2 3 3 values are the null. Then second one is the 1 and 2 are the null, and they have the 1 and 2 and 3 null values are there. Now when you cut it, because say for example this row has the null value, this row has the null value, we remove it and we can directly jump to 0.6. So you can see that 2 to 0.6, that row number 1 and row number 2 is not there. Why? Because they have the null values. So we remove these rows and finally we check that yes, column 0 1 2 all 3 columns says that there is no null value. So this is the method that how we can handle the that means missing values, that you can directly cut the entire rows or you can fill these values with the help of someone else. So this is the way that just delete it. That is the simple, that either use the drop function or filter function or move function. Now we go to the another method that here, because when you try to delete the rows or columns, that means your data size is smaller and smaller, and small data size is not helpful for the machine learning purpose. So our objective is that we try to fill the null values, not to cut or remove the rows and the columns. So for that one, that there are two methods are there, imputation method and interpolation methods. The imputation method, they do the replace missing values with the substitute values. So they figure out and find out some values and try to fill that value with the help of the substitute values. So when we fill the values, we call it the fill null method. So this is the fill null methods are already there in the Python library. So what they will do, they take the mean, median or the mode of the column wise and put the mean values in place of the null values. This is the method that Python use for the imputation for filling the values, and this method is working perfectly for missing complete at random and some sort of missing at random, but of course the missing not at random, that is not working in that condition because intentionally you have missed some value, so it is very tough to fill. So first we see some example that how the substitute value we can calculate with the help of mean, median or mode, and put that values to fill the value. So this is the example. We take this example and let's see that how it works here. So you can see that this is the data, that data.nm file that we have created here, and we copy this one. First we try to print that original data, they have the missing values. So here they have the missing values like this one, and then what we will do, we replace the nn value with the mean. So this is the value fill na that means this is the inbuilt function. You fill the NA value with the help of this one. So data dot missing, this one is your original data, they have the missing values, dot mean. So calculate the column mean and put the column mean in place of the NA, and this is the data mean, this is the new data frame. So they have that means they have the complete values. So null values or NN values, whatever the random values or missing values are there, we fill with the help of mean. So we can check that there here. So the NN is there, NN is there, NN is there. So you can see that these NN by filled by the mean of the other non-zero values. So they take the mean of the non-zero values and put that values at this place where the N. Now you can see that this is the complete your data set. There is no null values. Even input is like this one, null values are there, missing values are there because of the system failure or because of the writing problem. So we can do the mean and fill these values. If you want to fill this value with the help of median, so you can use this method that here you can fill these values with the help of median in that case. So call the median function here, and rest of the things are the same. And when you print these values, then you can see that yes, so median of the non-zero values or non-null values is 0.1. So they write the 0.1 in place of these values. Why? Because these are the non-zero values. So that's why they fill this 0.1 in place of the non-zero values here, 0.1, 0.1 and 0.1. The third one is that we can also use the mode. So if you use the mode, then you can also able to fill the values of the mode with the help of this. So this is the example that take the mode and fill the values. So these are the three methods that other methods are also there. So you can fill the null values with the help of mean, median and the mode. Now the another way is that interpolation method. So estimate missing values based on the value of the other data points. So earlier what we have done, we do the column wise. Here what they have done, they created some correlation, either linear correlation or polynomial correlation or spline correlation. So these are the correlation, and calculate the value with the help of correlation and fill that values. So we can see the program first, and then after we can discuss that how it works. So this is the same as previous one. This is the pandas library num file, and here you can see that this is the file, they have the missing values, and you use the interpolation but use the linear. So linear they create, so these are the missing values here. So they created a linear relation between these columns, so and find out the values like this one or that one. So you can see that earlier that mean and median, they have the same values at this place, but here they have the different values at this place. Why? Because they create the correlation between these values or the interpolations and in this value. So this is the linear. Polynomial, you can use the higher order or whatever the order is there for fill the values. So they also try to fill the values, but yes, of course the linear and polynomial, they have the different values. And interesting thing is that if you can write the order equals to 1, that polynomial automatically comes into the linear, but order equals 2 or higher dimension, then we can say this is the polynomial. And you can also use the split similar as the polynomial for fill this value. So this values we can calculate with the help of the interpolation. So but finally result that there is no null values, you can fill the null values with the help of these methods. So this is the way that how we can handle the missing values in that means if the data has some missing values because of the any reason. This is the last one method that how to fill the values. So earlier we have seen that you can use the mean, standard deviation, then you can go to the linear relations and other things. And finally the k nearest neighbor algorithm is also there. K nearest neighbor means if you want to fill a one value, you just check the nearest neighbor up to the k nearest neighbor. So k equals to 2 means you can check only the 2 nearest neighbors. K equals to 3 indicate you need to see only the 3 nearest neighbors. So let me copy this one as the previous one, and we try to run it. So here that is the pandas library for file handling, working on the file, num for numeric analysis, and here we use the k nearest neighbor. So that's where we need to import the sklearn library for understanding the machine learning and deep learning programming. So sklearn library, there is the for k nearest neighbor. Read the data set. This data set has the null values, and if you print this, you can see that yes, some null values are there. Now you use the k nearest neighbor impulsion, and you consider only the up to the 2 nearest neighbor, and calculate this values input, and use this one function for fit to transform the null values with this impulse methods, and this is the fill the null values. So after that k nearest neighbor, you can see that yes, this one and this one value you find out at this position and at that one position. So this is the way that how we can fill these null values in this if we use the k nearest neighbor. So but you need to know the what suitable values is there for k equals to 1 or k equals to 2, 3, 4, whatever the values are there. So it is up to you that what is the correlation. So for example, if the data has up to 100 data's relation, so you can write the k equals to 100. Or if the data is only 3 datas are correlate with each other, then you can put the k equals to 3. So this is all about the part 2. We have seen that data cleaning, if you have the noise, then how you can remove this noise or missing values. We continue this data pre-processing for the other purpose in part 3. Thank you.